What's up, Dragon Brood? We have another guest on today. We got Mythic Mike back for what is this? 2 sets in a row now? I think we've done this.
Yes, man. It's a tradition now. Let's go.
Yeah, it might be become an every set thing now. But yeah, so we wanted to take a little bit of a different spin because last time we did it, it was with Foundation. There was like a bajillion cards, and we had to make a bunch of videos. So like this time, what we're gonna do, we're gonna make 2 videos. There's gonna be this one, or we're gonna talk about our favorite rares and mythics in each color. So we're gonna pick one each. And then we're going to do the commons, uncommons, budget cards over on Mike's site. So you need to go check out his channel. So yeah, we'll leave that here. I'll put a thing after the edit so people will know where to find you. But let's not waste too much time and let's get into some Aetherdrift cards here. So why don't you start and we'll do them in a Wooburg order because that's how people like stuff in Magic.
All right. I am going controversial here with my favorite cards. I am doing Salvation Engine. It's a 5 mana mythic artifact vehicle. It's a 6/10. Other artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. Whenever this vehicle attacks, return up to one target artifact from the creature to artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it has crew 6. So that is pretty wild because it's only a 6/10. Now, the positive is crew 6, if you have all artifacts, is really only crew 2 if you have 2 creatures because they get buffed. Now, why would I think this card is good? It reads terribly, right? I think there's going to be an artifact deck where you do a lot of cost reduction on artifacts. We already have a ton of cost reduction, and we got some more. In terms of, right, there's a 3 mana guy that makes a Power Stone. There's Voyager Quick Welder, which is a new one that has cost reduction. There's a blue 2 mana guy that has cost reduction. And there are so many good artifacts that I think we are going to be able to do a go wide artifact cost reduction deck with this as the top end. What's really nice is it buffs all your creatures a lot and cannot really die. I mean, it's hard to kill this thing, right? It's hard to kill it if you crew it, but obviously more so if you don't. And then later in the game, you can start just bringing your stuff back. Not to mention, you could also add some self mill and put some huge artifacts in your graveyard and bring them back as your top end as well. And there's obviously things like Flesh Gorger, which can be huge or small. So you could actually just add them in your deck, play them, and then if they die, start bringing back the big giant Flesh Gorger. So look, I'm pumped about this card. We'll see how it goes. Some of these cards I'm going to know within a week if they're good or not. But I have put this in a few decks I brewed, and we're going to try it.
I don't really have a problem with this card being picked. Matter of fact, it was one of the cards I considered putting here because I do think with the way this set's built, there's going to be something that's a lot of artifacts, right? And I think when we look at costs, especially in the current era of standard with this, by the time we get to the end of this year, I think it's going to be like 15 sets or something. It's going to be huge. Like, there's a lot of cards where you can get artifacts back from the graveyard, right? Like you get cost reduction on a lot of things. You can put stuff from your hand directly into play. So there's not necessarily a world where we have to pay the 5, right? Like we might get it a lot cheaper. So if you do, then that's just all that much better. But if you do just have to play it on turn 4 or 5, all right, all your stuff still gets +2/+2. And then if you happen to attack with it, there's a big bonus because now you're getting stuff back out of the graveyard. So yeah, I think it's a pretty sweet card. I think people are into this, and it is already going for like $8 to $10 on a lot of websites already too. So
Awesome.
some people seem to believe in it at the very least.
Very cool.
Now, what I chose to go with instead of that also is a white vehicle, is Skyseer's Chariot. So this is a fun one because I don't even know if it needs to go in a dedicated vehicles deck, but Skyseer's Chariot is a colorless and a white for a 3/3. It's a vehicle. It has flying. When it enters, you choose a non-land card, and activated abilities of sources with the chosen name cost 2 more to activate, and it crews for 2. So you get all the benefits of it just being a good vehicle, right? It's a 3/3. It's cheap to crew. If you are doing the vehicles thing, or you just want to have an extra thing that survives a sweeper, cool choice. But being able to slow down activated abilities of stuff right now doesn't seem that strong because you're thinking about a lot of the cards that are popular in standard and you go, okay, well, there's a bunch of small creatures, or you're playing like Shieldrids or whatever. Those don't have activated abilities. But in this particular set, there are a lot of things with activated abilities, right? Exhaust, various ways that you're trying to reactivate things, tap stuff, untap things. Like there's a billion things going on with cards in the set that if that becomes the case, you might actually main deck some of these. I think for sure it's a reasonable sideboard card for a lot of decks if you're playing best of three. But for best of one, I think this actually could do a little bit of something.
No, I love this card as well. And isn't crewing an activated ability?
I believe it is.
That's
Let
a
me
good
look up the
question.
actual definition so I can tell the people correctly.
If it is, then obviously this card's going to be huge because at least in the beginning, everyone's going to be trying to crew stuff, and they cannot crew it. Not to mention there are a good amount of planeswalkers going around. That's activated abilities, right?
Crew
I need
is
to
an
check.
activated ability.
I need to check all my definitions on some of these cards. The amount of times I think I know how things work, and then I'm like, how did they play that? But mana dorks as well, and
Yeah, when the mana dorks get around it, because a lot of those are considered mana abilities, so you
oh
can't counter
no,
mana abilities. Now, well, what's interesting is we do have stuff like the Lotus in this set is worded a very particular way so
got it.
that it's not a mana ability because you have to sacrifice other things to get a thing. So that could be stopped as well if that's a concern. So yeah,
Very
this
cool.
the Sky Seer Share can be used against quite a few things in this set.
What's up with the Pixie deck? Which ones of those are activated? I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, the point is there's a good amount of stuff, and if vehicles crewing is an activated ability, which I believe it would be,
It is. Mhm.
okay, then this card is nice. And look, there's a decent amount of cards that make crewing things easier, or even automatically crew vehicles. And a 2 mana 3/3 flying, obviously, is no joke.
Yep. All right. Those are the white cards. Let's move on to blue. Because I felt like blue was the hardest one for me to find something that I really was digging in this set. I felt like blue feels like it got a little light in this set for me. But what was the card you selected?
Yeah, no, I agree. I had trouble finding a rare. I honestly had a million uncommons and commons. So check out the other video as well that I was in love with. But in terms of the rare, I did go with Unstoppable Plan.
Okay.
This is the 3 mana enchantment. And at the beginning of your end step, untap all non-land permanents you control. Now, some people love this in control decks. I hate control decks. I don't play them. If you like that, then it is what it is. Probably don't watch my videos. But if you like creature decks, we are still going to try to break this. This is one of those that who knows if what I'm thinking will work. But there is a bunch of Convoke stuff that's out there. I've made some Vigilance decks with Wandering Rescuer, which can come in and give your creatures hexproof, and you can pay its mana cost by tapping your creatures. There's also like a 3 mana white Convoke removal spell that kills a tapped
Yeah.
creature. There's like a red thing that's Convoke that gives your creatures +2/+0 and hate. So there's a bunch of just Convoke spells out there, including a bunch of Convoke creatures, in some that have flash. And if you can kind of leverage your creatures as mana and then get untap on that, you could make a pretty sick deck with Wandering Rescuer as your top end, which then will always be held up to protect everything. Now, look, it may not work, at which case I'll leave this to the control players who I think will use this card because they can hold up their counter spell or no, I guess it would be they hold up like mana rocks and things like that.
Yeah.
But we're gonna at least give it a try in a creature focused deck, and I think it could be fun.
You know what's funny is this is a card when I was doing some videos with Dev, which are here on the channel, but like I had this on my list of stuff that I liked, but might be overrated by a lot of people. Because it's like, all right, I get it. I kind of want to do some big things with this too, but what are we doing that's really efficient enough to justify it, right? Like, I don't know what that looks like. And I'm sure when it happens, somebody's going to bust it wide open, and that'd be the one deck where we go, oh, this is what you're supposed to do with this card,
Yeah,
right? But yeah, I don't know. Like, this was a tough one for me because I've stared at it for a long time too. And I'm kind of like, well, we already have other stuff that untaps things. And like, this is at the end of the turn. So like, what are we doing to take advantage of it? Like, I don't know. But I feel like this is one of those ones that I don't want to hype it too much, but I also don't want to trash it either because like the ability is too good, right? There's something you're going to do with this card. I just don't know what, but somebody's going to figure it out for sure.
absolutely. It's going to be the new Omniscience, and it just pops out of nowhere and ruins your life.
Yeah,
But
exactly. All right. So for my blue card, I did find one which it came down to two ultimately, but I went with Repurposing Bay. It's two and a blue, so 3 mana for an artifact. You can pay two, tap it, sacrifice another artifact, search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to one plus the sacrifice artifact's mana value. Put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle. Activate only as a sorcery. I was thinking about this, and with the number of artifacts in this set, that leaves the door wide open for a lot of things you can do. There's also a ton of things in the set that has artifact or affinity for artifacts, which helps with that too. So if you're already leaning that way, or if you want to put this in a simulacrum synthesizer deck, right? It costs 3 itself. You start sacrificing other stuff, whether that's a token to go get a 1 mana thing and then like work your way up. It can help you search for your removal cards that are in there. Maybe you sacrifice a 2 mana thing to go get one of your 3 mana things. So this feels like it's really on the cusp of being able to do something, but it's going to be limited to only a couple of decks, I think is the issue with this. Now, in older formats, I think you could go nuts with this card because there's a billion artifacts to pick from and a bunch of things you could do, and even get this into play cheaply if you wanted to. Like, there's a bunch of stuff you could do with this card as far as older formats go. But I do think this could be a card where a copy or two shows up in a couple of standard decks.
Yeah, no, I think this card will be very good. My guess is it will go in those like simulacrum synthesizer blue decks, and they'll keep getting more artifacts, or some other combo decks. My assumption is you're gonna have to play a lot of temporary lockdown and board wipes in these decks to have a free turn to do this stuff. So that's why I'm not sure I'll be able to play it in the decks I like, which are a little more aggro mid range, but I expect to lose to this card a lot because I think it's very powerful. And the fact you go up in mana value, sometimes it'll say like, you go down in mana value or you search for something with similar mana value. Going up in mana value is no joke.
I think what it allows you to do too is you can almost go a little bit more toolboxy and play ones and twos of several cards,
Yep.
and then use this to go like, okay, I have this one answer for this weird situation, especially in best of one, where you're like, all right, I might need something to sweep the board. I might need something to deal with graveyards. I might need to get rid of some giant creature with hexproof or whatever, right? You can go find the card that allows you to do that, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
there's a
yeah,
4 mana steal spell that I'm in love with always, but never has been that good. Which, like, you steal their creature, then attack in with it, and then you can sacrifice. It's also a food. You can sacrifice it for like by paying a little bit of mana, and it deals 3 damage to their face afterwards. I mean, that's a pretty sweet one to just have one off of and like steal their
yeah.
giant creature, right? So there might be some artifacts popping out that are in to play with things like this that have been out for a long time, but are just now gonna see play.
You know what's really good about it? That the longer it's in standard, the better it's probably going to get because
Yep.
there's always going to be more artifacts.
Yep.
All right, those are the blue cards. What do you got for black? 'Cause I feel like there was a few things that could have been selected here for black.
The black, it's my favorite card in the whole deck. It's the Last Ride. I've always
Okay,
loved it. Last Ride, 1 mana, vehicle, legendary artifact, mythic, 13, 13, and it gets minus X, where X is your life total. Now, in order for it to be a 1/1, you need 12 life, right? Or no? Yes, 12 life. Is that how that works?
last ride is minus X equal to your life total. So if you're
A
at
1/1, you need 12 life.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And so we look, if you have like 1 life, it's a 12/12. So that's the biggest it can get. But it has this ability 3 mana, pay 2 life, draw a card, and crew 2. So you can it's one of those decks. There's been other cards that you have to kind of kill yourself or let yourself get killed in order for this to have like crazy value. But look, if you get down to like 5 life and this is an 8/8, you are doing stuff. Now, I really like this. It pairs with another card we'll get into where I can turn this into a skeleton and give it haste. You'll see in a couple cards how we do that. So I just love the idea of 8/8 haste vehicle that's also going to be a skeleton because I love skeletons. And I think like one or two of these in a lot of black decks, just as like a threat that's out there, um, could be kind of meta, and we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But I'm excited for it.
Yeah, for me, it's a type of card I'm treating more like an enchantment. Like I almost don't even look about, okay, if I get to attack with it, fine, right? That's just a bonus. The game hit a situation where it just randomly makes sense. But there's going to be a lot more situations where a deck just, maybe you're playing a life game deck or something else. And you're just like, you know what? I just want something where I could just draw extra cards easy.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, pay 3, pay 2 life, draw a card.
Yeah.
And it's instant speed. So if you don't trying to leave mana up to do stuff during your opponent's end step, I'll go digging for a card, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the real benefit here. And if you're playing anything that gives you a bonus for drawing extra cards or for losing life or whatever, like it fits any of those theme decks as well.
Yeah. I'm pumped, guys. Don't you're gonna die to my last ride skeleton deck. Don't worry.
Well, my black one, and I actually, like I said, there were several I thought we could have picked for black, but I went with Curse Cloth Wrappings. It's 2 black, so 4 mana for an artifact. Zombies you control get +1/+1. You can tap it, target creature in your graveyard gains Embalm until end of turn. The Embalm cost is equal to its mana cost. And for those that don't know what that is, this is kind of a brought back ability, but exile that card and pay its Embalm cost. You get a creature token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie in addition to its other types, and has no mana cost, and Balm only as a sorcery. So this is just cool if you're, because like zombies have already been kind of close, right? Like, so this is one more card, pumps all your zombies, but now all those things are harder to deal with. But you could also just play this in anything that's a black aggro deck if you wanted to, and now you just get to get all those creatures back, and they're +1 effectively because they're coming back as a zombie. So this card might just slip its way into a few different decks just because. Now, obviously, I think Commander players are going to love this card, right? Just having the option of getting any of your creatures back is always good. But if you like playing zombie themed decks and a lot of zombie stuff stays popular and expensive, like this is a shoe in for those type of builds already. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those cards that as the years go by stays in that like $10-12 range.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you saw me yelling at something, my dog's going crazy. My girlfriend just walked in the house, so you know. But I do like this card a lot. Again, there's cost reduction in artifacts, including a white cost reduction card, which, I love some Orzhov zombies. And it's just really nice to get back things. And I mean, if you just start getting back good 1 or 2 drops from your graveyard, you could do a self-mill deck, get back Souls of the Lost, which is going to be huge just for 2 mana. I mean, there's a lot of cool synergies. I'm sure we're going to find some busted ones, so I am super pumped.
Yeah, this is one it's one of those cards that I'm going to be concerned when my opponent has it. You know what I mean? Like, because now it's like, okay, it's not even good enough just to kill stuff, because now I may have to kill stuff twice. So, like, now I got to get rid of this card. These are the type of cards that I think are going to lead to people playing more anti artifact stuff in best of one main decks. Like, otherwise, some of your games are going to get out of control. But all right, let's talk about red cards here, because this was another one where I thought there was a handful of cards that probably could have made either of our list here.
Gastil Thrill Roller, 3 mana artifact vehicle rare. It is a 4/2 with trample haste. When this vehicle enters, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So you can actually attack him with a 4/2 trample haste on the first turn. It has crew 2. Otherwise, it's not hard to crew. And for 3 mana, you can discard a card and return it from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. So you can only do it once. And it does have to be a sorcery, but that means when you bring it back from the graveyard, it automatically crews so you can attack with it again. I think this is insane. If you, number one, you can just mill it and get it back from your graveyard. That's insane value. I think this is going to be good in so many decks. Will it make the mono red cut? I think possibly, but it's definitely going to be in some very cool Rakdos decks, some artifacts, matter decks, and I think it might be one of the best vehicles in the set.
I think what they did really well with it was, by the way, it was also going to be my pick. So it's very, very popular. But I think giving it both trample and haste makes it potentially playable, right? Because now, especially on turn 3, there's a chance you're going to get in for a couple of damage. Maybe they have to chump block to kill it or whatever. But even if they do and you don't have anything next turn, you're like, all right, just discard a card, run it back. There's red decks that or red blue decks. I think there's going to be a theme where you're drawing and discarding cards already. So this is an option to just pitch it and you can play it out of the yard. It's good to have an option after a sweeper and it's 4 damage. I think that's actually really good. Possibly decks like Delirium, if you need some more artifacts or something in there to help you hit your Delirium count, like that's a thing you can do because they're already milling stuff in the yard anyway. So now you can play this out of the graveyard fairly cheaply. And it allows you to discard a card so you could still keep your Delirium count up, which is kind of funny. So yeah, there's a few different things you can do with this for sure. And I expect to at least see it get some modest amount of play. The only thing I find interesting is like we have Ball Lightning right now and we don't even play Ball Lightning, right? But this is slightly better in the sense that it's only one red mana as opposed to being three red in the cost, right? And it doesn't die at the end of turn. So while you're giving up a couple of points of damage, you're still getting the trample haste, the ability to play it out of the graveyard, get the discard options if the decks support it. Like this is doing so much more. Like I don't know. I almost feel like I should have a fun name that's like Ball Lightning Junior, but like it's really good. Like I expect to get killed by this card being at like 6 or 8 life, and an opponent has like one creature out or whatever, and then they just play this, or you can't attack because this is sitting in the graveyard, and you know it's going to put you closer to dead. So yeah,
Yeah,
really cool card.
and it doesn't lose to wipes. Or it won't
Yeah,
be killed by wipes. And then, I mean, Ball Lightning always dies, right? This thing not only doesn't die but comes back. And remember, there's a bunch of cards in this set, or there's a few where it says when you discard a card, you get this benefit.
yep.
And I mean, I think this. We'll see. I have this in a lot of decks I brewed, though.
I can't blame you for that at all because I'm going to be looking at it just the same. All right, so those were red. That brings us to green. What do you have here? Because
Did you
I
do
had a
your?
couple here that was a little tough.
Oh, you were going to do that card too.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, perfect. All right. So for green, I have. I'm giving dinos a try. I have Agonessar Rex, 5 mana, rare dinosaur, trample, 8/8. Already reasonable, right? And then you can cycle it for 3. So discard and draw, again, goes with a bunch of things that care about discarding or drawing or things in your graveyard. And then whenever you cycle this card, put 2+1/+1 counters on up to one creature or vehicle. It gains trample and indestructible until end of turn. Could dinosaurs ask for anything more? A giant dinosaur on reasonable cost that itself has trample and a way to give your pugnacious hammerskull trample or your other big dinosaurs that don't have trample while protecting them. Will dinos be a deck? I think if it is, it's going to be because of this card, and I'm definitely trying it out.
Well, this was on my short list of 3 cards. There's also the 3 mana 5/4 in this. I think Regal Imperiosaur. That also is a silly size for its cost and pumps other dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if necessarily either one needs to be in a dinosaur hardcore deck, right? They could just be mono green because they're just huge in size. I mean, it's a 5 mana 8/8. Like if you just early on need to protect a creature, you're like, all right, we'll put a couple of counters on this thing and it'll get hexproof till end of turn or indestructible, I should say. And fine. Hell, honestly, even as a trick play to give something +2 and trample is still good enough, right? That's going to win some games on its own. But if not, your opponent sweeps the board and you're like, all right, well, my 5 mana, here's an 8/8, like with trample. Like, honestly, because I was thinking about this, like, even in green or green red, like, I don't know what else you would even play over this at 5 mana in a lot of cases, right? Like, this can protect stuff and is just a huge body by itself. Like, if nothing else, like if you survive or you ramp up and you play this like against mono red, it blocks something even with the rage and stuff on it. Like it just doesn't care. It's an 8/8, right? It's just a huge body. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with this card, but this definitely has to see some amount of play. I'm going to be
Yeah.
surprised if it doesn't.
And it's not legendary. And
Nope.
like there are 8/1 drops that are mana dorks for dinosaurs. So like playing this on turn 3 is reasonable a decent amount of the time. We'll see. We'll see. But I'm pretty hopeful.
Yeah. Now, the card I've got is one that I debated for a bit because it's a bit different, but I do like what it brings, especially like we're saying to mono green aggro decks. And it's Webstrike Elite. It's a green, so just 2 mana for a 3/3 reach. It has cycling of green X, which is pretty interesting. And then when you cycle the card, destroy up to one target artifact or creature with mana value X. So the reason I like this is that one of the worst feelings when you're playing an aggro deck is you spend your 2 mana, you get your guy, and it dies to a cut down, right? Like this doesn't have that problem. It's a 3/3. So it's going to survive a fair amount of the early removal. It's not going to die to like a burst lightning or anything like that, right? So takes care of those problems. But one of the issues you run into sometimes when you're playing these hyper aggro, like our big stompy type decks with green or red green, is that you kind of have to decide how many spells are you willing to play so you can keep the aggression up, right? How many things am I going to play to get rid of artifacts or get rid of enchantments? Like this kind of gives you that option if you want to cut a couple of those out of your list and still play with this, right? So now you get the benefit of, okay, I have an early creature if I need it. If not, I can just go digging for a card, right, with the cycling portion. But I can also destroy an artifact or an enchantment, which in the future standards, probably going to be some amount of 2, 3, 4 cost vehicles you're going to want to get rid of, right? So this is actually a really cool card. I expect this is going to get some play as well, just because of the versatility of it being both a creature and a potential artifact enchantment removal spell. And for whatever reason, it just comes with reach.
I love this card. I think it's exactly what mono green needed. Like you said, the versatility is awesome. I always put in a bunch of mites because it's kind of a creature and it also can kill artifacts and enchantments. But this is better. I mean, it's 4 mana total to cycle, draw a card, and kill a sheltered by ghosts.
Yeah.
What else do you need besides that? And then it's a 2 mana 3/3, not even legendary. And the reach, whenever I do mono green, I'm always losing to flyers because they don't have a ton of good reach creatures. I feel like they used to, but they just don't. And I mean, a 3/3 will block Slick Shot Show Off even after Monstrous Rage and kill it. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, now you get to play this and pull a Kranos on back-to-back turns. So you get to play a 2 mana 3/3, a 3 mana 4/5, both with reach. Like that's a real issue for decks to punch past, honestly.
Definitely. Definitely.
Really strong stuff for green in this set, for sure. All right, now that we got through the colors, we did want to also address multicolor cards. So what we did here is we have multicolor, and then we have another category with colorless and lands in it. So didn't want to leave those out because I know if we did, people would be like, "What about this? What about that?" So we made sure we got you. We got you. So why don't you tell us what your multicolor card of choice is here?
So I don't feel like this is controversial. I feel like probably a lot of people would pick this because it's busted. It is Kaladin Triumph Caster, Boros, 2 mana, legendary creature, human pilot, 2/3. Mounts and vehicles you control have haste. Whenever a mount you control enters, it becomes saddled. Whenever a vehicle you control enters, it becomes an artifact creature. So all the mounts and vehicles which have crazy stat lines or abilities not only have haste, but they automatically get saddled the first turn on a 2/3 body, which is a fine stat line for something that, like, this could have been a 0/1 and I'd be playing it. I think this is going to be insane. I mean, there's so many mounts, there's now so many vehicles. I just can't imagine this won't be good. If it is not good, it's because vehicles are terrible, but I just don't believe it.
Yeah, this is another card that you're probably going to need to remove on site, right? Because there's just so many vehicles and mounts that, like, especially mounts, where it's like if it just attacks while saddled, get this thing, right? And that could be Seraphic Steed getting you a 3/3. That could be something giving you extra life, or the cat letting you search for extra lands. And like, there's just so many things that happen. And the fact that they have haste on top of it is super good, right? Like, there's just so many things that this card is going to enable. Good that it's legendary, I guess, but like, because at least reduces the effectiveness of the card somewhat. But it's only 2 mana. It is 2 color mana, so that does make a difference. But it's a 2/3 body, which is reasonable and gives you multiple good abilities on the card. Obviously, you have to build around it. It's part of a theme, whatever for a deck, but I think that's totally worth it.
I have a quick question for you if you know. I
Yeah,
assume it does not crew bigger things, but whenever it says create a pilot, it always says, "Oh, it's a 1/1 and it crews as if it's bigger." So I guess like a normal pilot just won't, right?
correct. Yeah.
Okay. It seems
Some pilots
confusing to
have
me.
the ability that actually say it, others just happen to be pilots by type. But I
Magic
think
cards,
that's
man.
okay. He's allowing them to just get a free hit in, so he can be forgiven.
Yeah, I think that would make it even more busted. But yeah, this card, my God, I'm a little worried.
Yeah, I when I saw it when it was previewed, I was super excited about this card. I just thought, man, if because I kept looking, going, okay, if you're gonna play hyper aggro vehicles or mounts, what does that look like? And this card for sure is one of them. There's another one I think we're gonna talk about when we get to the budget stuff, but this one really, really good. All right, I went back and forth on which one I was going to include here for the multicolor stuff because I think this set has a lot of good multicolor cards for sure. But I decided to go with Debris Beetle. It's a 2 black and green, so 4 mana for a 6/6 vehicle with trample. But when it enters, each opponent loses 3 life, you gain 3 life, and it crews for just a measly 2. So there's a lot of reasons I like this card. One is that you're just draining your opponent for 3 straight up. Like that's going to win some games sometimes by itself, right? It's going to be you have one in hand, you play one, you top deck the other one, your opponent's dead, right? That's a huge life swing there. But a 6/6 body is ginormous, right? That's hard for people to deal with for 4 mana. Crew for 2, so it's super easy to get it live. But also, if you want to play this in a commander deck, it does say each opponent loses 3. So you can ding multiple people with one card, which is super nice on this one too. So I wouldn't be surprised if this low key is like people buying it up and sneaking it into decks here or there. But yeah, I don't know if I would play necessarily 4 of these. I don't think that's the way you need to go, but even just a couple of them, I think could be pretty strong with this card.
Yeah, great pick. I mean, uh, I think it's really, really, really good. I mean, again, like a lot of people to deal with creature decks are doing a ton of board wipes, and these things just get around it. Those kind of control decks are going to have to find a new way or put, I mean, like Black Control or Demir Control don't have a ton of answers for these things. And opponent losing 3 life and you gaining 3 life is 6 damage in a race. So against a control deck, it might not matter, but it's good in other ways against control. And against something trying to race you, I mean, that's insane on something that's also really big. So I'm putting this in a lot of decks, and I think it's going to be great.
You know, one of the things I think is going to be a point of discussion too in the new standard is with at least for the next set, you know, till I guess we get to Final Fantasy or whatever when that comes out. But there's a lot of artifact creatures when you start talking about vehicles and whatnot, not even just including the regular artifact creatures. I don't even know how powerful Go for the Throat's going to end up being. You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be some times where I'm playing Go for the Throat and like, I just can't target some stuff. All right, you know, I guess I just die to this vehicle that's hitting me for 6. Like, you know, like nothing I can do about it. So that's going to be something worth considering when you're deck building. It'll be interesting to see what removal suite people decide to go with as the format shifts. But you know, only time's going to tell on that one.
Yeah, that outlaw, maybe like kill a non-outlaw, could be
Yeah, maybe.
reasonable. But yeah, I think Go for the Throat might be outdated. If any of these vehicles are good, I think Go for the Throat can't be played in best of one at least.
All right. So our last category, we put colorless and lands together because there's usually not that many of those. So we're each going to pick one. So what do you got for that one, Mike?
Oh, I hinted at this earlier, but we're doing Lifecraft Engine, 3 mana artifact vehicle, 4/4. It's a rare. As this vehicle enters, choose a creature type. Vehicle creatures you control are the chosen creature type in addition to their other types. That includes this one.
Mm-hmm.
Each creature you control of the chosen type other than this vehicle gets +1/+1, and it has crew 3. So, of course, if you know my channel, I am making this a skeleton. I'm giving that 1-drop 13/13 thing that can, it won't be a 13. I'm giving that thing haste +1/+0. We're giving all our vehicles, we're turning them into skeletons. If you play Corpse of the Lost, it gives skeletons +1/+0 in haste. And this will also buff our skeletons. I've been playing other ways to buff it, our skeletons, but put 4 corpses, 4 of these in, a bunch of skeletons, and then some, aggressive vehicles. And I think we have a skeleton vehicle deck that's going to be really hard to beat. Now with, skeletons already have recursion, but now you're telling me that we can crew them to make them bigger. I mean, it's going to be really hard to kill that deck, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things of just deciding how many creature lords do we need to play in different types of decks, right? Because this could be included in cats and rabbits, mice, you know, all these different things we've been seeing as far as theme decks go. Hell, elves, if we really wanted to. But the question becomes like, because we already have the other 3 mana 2/2, the automaton or whatever, right? That you can choose a creature type, and you can also attack with that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, some decks now realistically have access to, if you play four of everything, like 12 lords reasonably. Some maybe 16, might be too many. But like there's definitely some options here. And this could help a few different decks that might have been struggling, saying, because like Merfolk as an example, right? You kind of only have one, but you could play this and have another one. And tapping to crew also allows you to tap when used with the enchantment to get the 1/1 tokens because you tap to Merfolk. So possibly, like I mean, there's definitely some corner case uses for this. I think could be pretty fun.
Definitely.
But let's talk about Monument to Endurance. This is 3 colorless. It's just a good old fashioned honest artifact. Whenever you discard a card, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. You can draw a card, you can create a treasure. Each opponent loses 3 life. There is so much that I could use this card with. I don't even know what I'm going to use it with. Right? There's decks where you're discarding stuff to make token creatures. Like that's a thing. You could play it in the decks like the blue red decks already want you to draw and discard anyway, and you just get a bonus to either draw more cards or drain your opponent if you're playing the aggro hyper aggro version, right? There's cycling decks that maybe you could get 2 cards at a time when you're cycling. Like that could be a thing you might want to do. Or you cycle early, build up some treasure to go off and do something silly. There's things that might care about artifacts entering the battlefield, right? So now you're just trying to get the treasure to trigger those things. Like I don't know where this card's going to be used, but I can't imagine it just doesn't get played. Like it's too easy to discard a card to things. Hell, I'm even thinking now, like you've got fear of missing out, you have Inti, you've got just like a ton of other cards that you naturally are just discarding by virtue of playing the game. That I don't know, maybe this is in a delirium type deck or something. Like there's so many places this card could go. I don't even know what to do with it yet, but I know it goes somewhere.
Yeah, this card is crazy. It can go in any color. I mean, imagine putting Inti and Eidetic Memory in the same deck, and now you're drawing, discarding. And there's already things that discard. There's so much cycling in this deck,
Mm-hmm.
in this set. I'm really interested in things like Inti that can do it on the turn you play this. Or, I mean, there's like a Manifest Dread dude that draws and discards, and like
Yeah.
only draws if you manifested Dread. But now the discard is, I mean, I'm putting that in with no Manifest Dread so that I'm always discarding. There's a lot of fun things, obviously Liliana. So yeah, this might be like a killer out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't know what to do with it yet. I just know that there's a lot of places it could go and just chunks of 3 life. I mean, that's the crazy part, right? Like you could play a full set of these and be playing a discard deck and only ever care about just dealing 3 damage to your opponent when you're discarding. Like that could actually be a realistic thing and not be crazy. Right? Like so I for real don't even know. Like I feel like this is a card that somebody's going to figure it out and I'll die to it and I'm not even going to be mad about it.
You can play multiples and cost reduction on
Yes.
artifacts. You can play, I mean, you could have a few of these out, and then every time you're discarding, they're losing like 9 life. I mean, we'll
Yeah, and
see.
they're
But
not legendary. That's the crazy part. I'm like,
yeah,
you could do so much with this. And it, like I said, aggro's an option. Just mid-rangey stuff could be an option depending on what you're doing. The control builds where you're just trying to wipe the board and cycle a bunch could be a thing. There's so many things you could do with this. Like this is a potentially really big card in the right deck. But all right, that wraps it up. Those are our favorite cards for rares and mythics. But you need to hop over and go watch Mike's video if you haven't yet, because we're going to talk about the stuff that's not rare and mythic that might be a little easier on your budget. So why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, Mike?
yeah, Mythic Mike. Search it on YouTube. It's actually at Mythic Michael, but if you just search Mythic Mike, you will find me. Definitely check us out there. And thanks for having me, PowrDragn. It's been great.
Oh, always, dude. And if you're a viewer and you've gotten this far and you haven't done it yet, you know what to do. Hit all the things that make the dings down below. Really appreciate it. And if you want some bonus video content, we do have stuff for members as well if you want to join the channel memberships. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.